the day. It's a technical session. CSE is the vehicle for better service delivery to citizens. First, I would like to call upon the moderator of the session, Shri Dinesh Tyagi, CEO, CSE E-Governance Service India Limited. Sir. Please give a huge round of applause for sir. Srimati Prerna Puri, Secretary IT, Chandigarh Administration. Shri Naval Khosla, General Manager, ISA Industry Solutions, CWG Technical Sales, IBM. Shri Kisle Bhattacharya, National Business Head, Government PSU and BFSI Vertical, RICO India Limited. Now I will request Shri Dinesh Tyagi ji to start the session.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm sure it's a difficult time after the lunch to keep you awake and give you some exciting presentations in terms of the value it provides you, some thought process in terms of what it can finally achieve. Already you heard Mr. Rajesh Agrawal, who is one of the champions in the country in terms of speaking a different language. Actually, he speaks the language of Aam Aadmi. Not many know that he's from IIT. But I think expression and speech does not really give that aura of that he is from IIT and a secretary of Government of Maharashtra. After that thought process which is brought into the CSE is the front end, what the CSE is the front end for do. See, one thing which we wanted to share with you since we are associated with the CSE since the beginning and the concept and design process is that across the country, this is, in fact, the ITU recent study says this is one of the world's largest PPP project ever implemented in the history of ICT. 1 lakh centers. In fact, I remember when I went to US and talked to some of these participants in one of the courses. When I told him, that time when we told him in 2 years period time we will have 1 lakh centers, he laughed and he said, "God bless you if you can do that. It's a miracle." And actually it happened. It's not taken 2 years, taken 4 years, but today 1 lakh centers geographically, equitably spread across the country are available. This is also a recognition of the fact that government of various shades across the country, whether they belong to A party or B party, have now recognized that the service delivery to the citizen has to be taken by a private entrepreneur. That's the first recognition. I don't know how many of you know when they started, there are a few states which started through the panchayat. Tamil Nadu was one example when they purchased the computerized panchayat. And they said we will deliver services to panchayat. After Tamil Nadu, Gujarat did the same thing. And then of course the Maharashtra did saying we will do computerization and then deliver services. I am not saying that the government cannot deliver services. I am only saying there is a limitation in the way the government, any system, whether it's panchayat or otherwise, can address the concerns of the villagers living in the country. Because government will always operate 10 to 5. It will have its own problems of meeting the requirement of people going and staying there. It will have limitations in terms of Saturday, Sunday not being closed. A rural citizen, a private entrepreneur has that opportunity and an alternative channel also for delivery. Fortunately, all over, whether it's take to Northeast, Jammu and Kashmir, or any part of this country, there is a recognition, there is a very well recognition that the front end for delivery of services should be managed by a private entrepreneur. And that is what common service centers are. It is actually for all of us who are associated, it's not a scheme and not a program. We always call it as a movement. We actually call it an Andolan. So Andolan for empowering communities to derive what they can from the government and otherwise. It's basically not government services, it's basically empowering communities. See, what is the difference? I do tell people that, see, biologically, the size of the brain determines the level of intelligence in human beings as a process of evolution. That's why human beings' brain size is the largest. And there have been studies done of all genetic proofs across the world. Africa, America, Europe and India, and shows that the variation in the size of the brain within all genetic groups across the world does not have very significant value. That means what? That means a person living in rural India is almost equally intelligent as a person living in urban area. Then why is that guy not able to perform similar to what an urban guy is able to perform? Why is he not able to speak English as frequently as some of us are able to do that? It's only an access point, it's not an access. If you can create good access points, this guy gets an opportunity of same nature. I give this example to many of them. In fact, the simplest thing possible is on education. See, whatever we do, I think he called it do it innovation differently, I call it destructive innovation. If we look every process and question the process and every way we deliver services, then we can do something unique for this country. Education, we can do Sarv Shiksha Abhiyan, construct physical school, put teachers. There will be limitations because teachers, whatever incentive of policing you do, in any case, in my view, policing is not a solution, but whatever you do is not going to serve the purpose of, because 40% dropout even at primary scale. Pathetic. After 6 years of independence, we have 40% of people dropping out of primary, and we are talking about all that what we do. What is the solution? See, I know how many of you have seen this site, which is called khanacademy.org. It's a unique site. It's an open source, done by a town called Salman Khan of our MIT. Not our Salman Khan. It's unbelievably good. It has everything what a classroom can do. It is from class 0 to class 12. All subjects available to you. You can actually do it, and what they do is they do like a teacher teaches, except the face for teacher, everything is visible. He shows that. After this, an assessment. One of the best assessment tool in the world. And after that, everybody in the world who has asked question on that subject is available with questions and answers. It's a full class. That is what is required to be done. We need to redefine the way we do our processes and we redefine the way we deliver services in rural India. I think the common service centers have created that movement, that andolan of government thinking differently and thinking, is it possible for me to perform and deliver services differently to citizens? As I said, I have been in this project for about how many long? We started the project, so therefore 2006 onwards I have been there. 80 seminars were organized across the country, exciting all the intermediaries to participate in the program of Rural India. Fortunately, we got bid all over the country in every state without exception. That means the people realized, private sector realized the potential of generating business in rural India, such difficult circumstances, and today the great story, it is there. It has today also good, bad, ugly, every part of it. As a project, you will have excellent VLEs performing very well, you have a terrible VLE. There are 4 classes of people who joined the CSC movement. There is one guy who actually has a lot of money, wanted to get the Sarkari tag attached to him. So he wanted to become a private sector Sarkari Patwari in a village. There are this kind of people who join the CSC. There are people who have a job outside and wanted to come to village back. They got into CSC. There are people who are doing some business already and wanted to expand on business, enterprise, entrepreneurship. And there are 4 who have nothing and wanted to get to it. There are 4 categories of VLE, and every shade of a story is available in 1 lakh centers. In fact, very innumerable number of stories of good, bad, I told you to share with what CSC's movement is there. And we have the Government of India support and the state government and leaders like Rajesh Agarwal has taken a unique initiative. There are 2 states which I very want to mention. And I want to mention because as usual it happens that every state department wants to set up its own fund, but there are 2 states which are unique. One is the Jharkhand. Jharkhand as a policy has decided and told every department that there will be no front end. The only front end for delivery of services will be CSC. The second is Rajasthan. They went to the cabinet and took an approval and said no other department will set up a front end, and the only front end used will be the CSC. See, this initiative, because CSC program is not a program of an IT department. CSC program is a program of the state, and that ownership with each department has to emanate, and then only the CSC becomes a story to talk about it. As I said, I can go on because I have been going on for this for as long as you want, but I think with the time constraint, I will now invite Srimati Prerna, Police Secretary, IT Chandigarh. Chandigarh has been doing outstanding well. In terms of the common service, it has 12 rural CSC at that point in time when we started. They were given to private, but they are more urban. But the number of transactions in Chandigarh in the urban CSC is one of the largest in the country in terms of what they are doing. Let's hear her example. She will share some of the good things being done in Chandigarh in terms of delivery services to CSC.
Tyagi sir, moderator for the session, eminent panelists, delegates, ladies and gentlemen, a very good afternoon to all. A post-lunch session is always a daunting task, and because attention span has its own limitations, I would like to keep it short and share with you a few reflections which I feel should be taken into account. Also in the morning we heard Rajesh Agarwal sir. So all that I would say is that after you hear an excellent speaker who has full mastery on the subject, the task for the others who follow becomes simpler because there is very little to add and very little to say. With that in mind, coming to the topic for this session, service delivery for the citizens has undergone a massive transformation and has evolved in a big way over the last 1 decade. And we see that the services that are being provided to citizens, it has broken new frontiers, reached new barriers, crossed new barriers, and rather has come out into a league of its own. I would like to begin by sort of portraying two scenarios. Picture this, that you are preparing for a presentation and you think that you need to refer to a certain book. You use your computer or tablet or mobile phone and you place an order, ordering for a particular book, and lo and behold, within 30 to 60 minutes, the order reaches your doorstep. Whether you are at home, in a hotel, or maybe on a boat in the sea or something, the order does happen to reach you. So this is futuristic, but is it real? The answer to this would be yes. This is just a pictorial description of Amazon's Prime Air, which is their drone service, which is using an octocopter. They are delivering packages to the designated locations. So all that is being done over here is, for example, that the box is packaged, it is attached to the octocopter, and the octocopter is programmed to deliver the baggage or the parcel to the designated address using geographical coordinates reaches the destination concerned. So this is just an example of the drone, which is right now in the pilot stage being used by Amazon. Another scenario that I would sort of ask you to reflect on would be that we go into a cafe or a restaurant and we use our tablet and we use a mobile device and we punch in our order. And after punching in our order, suddenly we find that magically the order pops up on our table. So we ordered burgers and french fries and suddenly the order magically is there on our table. So this is another example where this is actually happening in Christchurch in New Zealand, where in restaurants and cafes, when you order, the chef packs your order into a capsule, and by way of pneumatic tubes, the order reaches the designated location on the table. So these may sound like futuristic concepts, but what I was coming back to is that they are being implemented now. And we see that, for example, now this is like our burgers and french fries, and probably as we are talking now, these burgers and french fries will be reaching the tables of customers at the speed of 87 miles per hour through use of pneumatic tubes. So this is not related to CSEs, we're coming to the topic now. So that what we find here in these two instances are examples of the way human interface is getting reduced in a way that we see. The drones are being pilot tested in US, and probably by 2015, when the US government finalizes the regulations for commercial use of drones for delivery of these kind of packages, it would be implemented. And insofar as using less of human interface is concerned, we come to a point that these two instances or scenarios are sort of examples of the way that probably our setup or our tuning is becoming such like that we find that the public in general is being serviced by the private sector in a way which is efficient, in a way which is human-less interface. So these are examples in the private sector where the public is getting service and it is getting efficient service delivery without sort of having any sort of human interface. In Chandigarh we have a very unique setting. We have an urban setting, a primarily urban setting, and our demographics are such that we would be comparable with the countries like Greece and Switzerland with regard to certain human development indices. So keeping that in view, the demographics of the place, I feel that the administration has felt a need, and there has been in fact a perceived need to cater to the requirements of people in a different sort of way, to cater to the requirements of people and to think futuristic. So with that, once we analyze the two service models in the private sector that were observed, we expect that there is a genuine expectation of the public that the interface should be, without any, the channels of service delivery should be free of human interface. Which brings us to a point that industry has recognized it today, that public has a need for, which is represented in the "we want it now" syndrome. Agarwal sir in the morning was referring to the fact that people don't want to stand in queues necessarily, they don't want to waste a whole day, and they want processes to be simplified, they want processes to be transparent, and they want a certain ease of use of the service, which is important. So keeping that in mind, the "we want it now" syndrome is sort of gaining currency, where everybody is short on time and would want effective service delivery, and probably at the doorstep or near around. In Chandigarh, we started with the concept of Samparks, which is akin to the common service centers, and the Samparks have evolved in a very need-based fashion. Need-based fashion in the sense because our Samparks are located probably at almost a distance of within a radius of 1 kilometer of the residence of the person. So initially we had around 28 Sampark centers, and now we have extended the Sampark centers by way of opening up of Sampark kiosks, which are extensions of the Sampark centers, but they are low-cost kiosks, fabricated structures which we have built to provide this convenience to the citizens at within a radius of 1 kilometer, as I said. Taking a cue from providing this humanless interface, Chandigarh administration, we released our IT and electronics policy in November 2013, and we factored this into account by including the fact that we would aim to provide service delivery to the citizens in a self-service mode. We would provide e-governance services to citizens in a self-service mode. Accordingly, what I foresee is that our Sampark centers, which are akin to the CSCs, would be able to provide services to citizens in an environment which would be internet-enabled self-service kiosks. So probably the citizen, when he enters a CSC or our Sampark center, he would be able to see a kiosk which would have a smart interface, which would adapt to the use of the user, which would adapt to the needs of the user. As an initiative, we started the use of information kiosks in the Chandigarh administration. I would just like to highlight 2 or 3 examples by way of which we utilize various applications using these touchscreen information kiosks. Chandigarh, as we know, again, is a city which is known as City Beautiful. It is a tourist attraction. People do frequent the city, and we felt that information with regard to places to visit and areas to visit in the city was not available other than on the web, as well as on the tourist information centers. So we decided to introduce the concept of our tourist information kiosk, which is a touchscreen kiosk wherein on the push of a button you could in fact get to know what are the places to visit. Any tourist could get to know what are the places to visit in the city, as well as eateries and knowledge about other tourist attractions in and around Chandigarh as well. So one such information kiosk is located in the Ruti guest house as well. Another application which was to do with more more public, which had more public utility in this sense, was the application that we designed for the registering and the licensing authority. Chandigarh also happens to have the highest number of vehicles registered per capita in the country. So for any person who owns a good luxurious vehicle, it has been also a desire that he should get a VIP number for that particular vehicle. So getting a VIP number or getting a number of your choice for your particular vehicle, it was always felt that you had to go and stand in queue and to see the list of numbers which were available, which were left after the auction and which were available on payment of a certain price. So we introduced this application on the touchscreen kiosk itself. We brought it on the touchscreen kiosk, that again the person could get to know which numbers were left out of the after the auction, and on the press of the button he could get to know which numbers are available for purchase for his or her own vehicle. So these 2 applications we feel have also cut down on the transaction time. I mean, cut down on the time that it was taking for a person to maybe access the web, or to, and this is also to do with people who probably did not have web access, and to cut the digital divide. They was visiting the offices, standing in queues, waiting for their turn to get to know, to seek a certain information from the government side. Another area of concern or priority has been the housing sector, where in Chandigarh we have a pool of government houses. So allotment of these government houses, again, there is a seniority list which is maintained, there is an availability of houses which is there. So we had a number of people flocking the government offices wanting to know at what seniority their name lies within the list, and what would be the chances of their getting a particular house. So again, using the information kiosk, we provided this information on the kiosk that a person visiting the office, instead of wanting to wait and get to know this information, could simply press a button and click of a button. He could get to know whatever information lays therein. By that, he could get to know whether on what number his seniority lies and what are the houses that are available for that particular person. So what we're trying to say is that this is we've just started this initiative of having these kind of kiosks, wherein we are trying to sensitize the people to increase the uptake of technology in a way, as well as also to provide service delivery at the press of a button. The next step which we would like to undertake would be to upgrade these to payment kiosks, which are being used elsewhere as well, so that these applications can be upgraded and we can have certain payment kiosks. Other than that, we feel that we would also like to go a step further and design kiosks which would be conceptualized in such a way that they would cater to the needs of the citizens themselves. People would be able to service the kiosks as per their own needs and requirements, for which we have included this idea in our IT policy of using analytics to sort of get to know the requirements and needs of the people, which can help us in innovating public service delivery. I would like to also talk here for a moment about the technology acceptance model, which is a well-trained model given by Fred Davies. He talks of a chasm which exists between the early adopters of any technology and the laggards. So the difference between the early adopters is that they are the pragmatists and they take to a technology. The laggards are the conservative kind of people who do not easily accept any technology. So in order to bridge the chasm or the divide between this, it is important that we take steps to bridge the gap that there lies. So for this, we sort of thought of various things as to what makes a person accept a technology or take up a technology. So the uptake of any technology depends on the perceived usefulness of a technology. Is it perceived to be useful by people? And the perceived ease of use of that technology. So not only does the technology or the solution that we are offering, not only does it have to be useful, but even has to be perceived as useful by the people for them to sort of uptake these kind of technologies. So this is somewhat, I feel, which has to be the guiding principle while we evolve our systems in a way that we provide better service delivery to the citizens. We have also, in a way, to bridge the gap and to sensitize people to take up these applications and to adopt technology. We have started something which is on the lines of the Akshaya program in Kerala, which is called we have launched a program called E-Saksham. Now, E-Saksham is an initiative of the Chandigarh administration based on the IT policy of Government of India, wherein it is stated that we must endeavour to make one person in every household illiterate. In Chandigarh, we've gone a step further and we have said that our endeavour would be to make 2 people in every household illiterate, and including 1 woman member of every household. So keeping that in mind, we have started free of cost training on Internet and MS Office for the senior citizens, and we have in fact enrolled the first batch of people for this. So this is just an attempt on our part to sensitize the people how to sort of bring them closer to usage of technology. Another useful trend which one came across is in the public sector, which is the e-wallet launched by IRCTC. Now, e-wallet is a solution wherein it works something like a prepaid mobile on connection, wherein you have a certain credit in your e-wallet account and you can use that credit. It remains in that account and the control does not pass on to a third party or an aggregator. And you can use the credit in your account for booking of your tickets. So this is something, in the morning also there was talk of integration with e-payment gateway and things like that. So this is also something that we are looking at so that we can have something like e-cash or e-wallet for all the government transactions that we are going to be having here, and which can be linked at the back end with the integrator model. It is also sort of important that when we look at the future role of CSCs, that we realize that CSCs of course have to sort of have a built-in sort of mechanism whereby we innovate to cater to the needs of the public. As I mentioned earlier, there is a need to understand what the requirements of the public would be, and for that analytics or data analysis of the kind of people who are frequenting your CSCs or your Sampark centers would be a useful tool. We personally feel that in case a person is visiting the CSC, and if we can fetch data using analytics as to what is the nature of people who are visiting a particular Sampark center. There might be people with special needs who would be most frequent visitors to a particular Sampark center, and we we can then cater to their requirements like that. And also we would also want to sort of record our interactions, record the interactions which people are making and the transactions which they are making, which can be used, the demographic data which is available can be linked to the SRDH base which is already being created through UID enrollment, and we can link it to that so that we already have the demographics of the person, and we can also maintain a record of the transactions of the person or the interactions of the person that we have, which will be a very useful tool in bettering the services that we are offering through the Sampark centers and in further upgrading the services at a later stage. So with this broadly, I feel that of course with the launch of the e-governance mission mode projects and with the setting up of ETAL, which is the metrics to monitor the transactions that are taking place, we have sort of taken a step forward, but also at the same time understanding the demographics and understanding the needs of the citizens would be important to sort of customize our systems in a way so that they become in sync with the needs of the people. And because as of now, nothing but the best would suffice. So looking at that, I think the way to go would be to also study the demographics and to understand the customer needs so that we can service the people in a better way. So that for me would be the future of CSEs. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Ms. Puri. I think Chandigarh may be the first state in that sense, despite being urban, that you are putting up front end for delivery services within 1 kilometer of the radius. We have been talking to Delhi government almost for how many years. Delhi has 8,000 colonies, and we have told them to put kiosk in the colony gate, 8,000 colony gate where old people, and you can actually do everything possible. It's a self-sustaining model without any investment. They're not going to do probably something of that nature. I think they'll learn from Chandigarh. The other initiative which she has mentioned is in terms of the creation of wallets and creative analytics. See, for the CSE, when we started the program, 5,000 villages in this country were studied. There is a report available. And people's desire, what they want, people's capacity to pay for that service was also studied. And that is the basis on which the whole evolution of what you can deliver, G2C and B2C, all were evaluated. The studies are available, but I think the urban requirement probably will be different from the village requirement. And your initiative of analytics of people visiting and then trying and working a model finally will add a lot of value to the CSE system. Thank you very much. Now we have Mr. Kishle Bhattacharya. He is the National Business Head from Government and PSUs from RICO India. I will request you to kindly share it.
Mr. Agarwal, Mr. Tegi and Ms. Prerna, other delegates. There are a lot of things actually we just came to know from your Sampark or whatever the development happening in Chandigarh and Delhi. Let me tell you very briefly on CSE. Everybody is very aware of CSE. It's not the largest PPP project. ISS is the pioneer of the PPP project in India because it started from 2006. These concepts. Okay, what is e-governance? If I say everybody knows, but I'll correctly ask Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam, our ex-president, says that I would highlight that a transparent, smart e-governance with seamless access, secure and authentic flow of information crossing the interdepartmental barrier and providing a fair and unbiased services to all citizens. So it is very related to whatever this e-governance project which we are talking about, mainly here the CSE. It should be why I have mentioned that on the last slide. I'll mention why I have mentioned this clause specifically. So the nodal of everything in the data center, and then there is G2C, B2C, and G2C connectivity. Traditional versus e-governance. This is a typical why people is going for e-governance or why government is more adapting towards e-governance. The reason is there are a few things I mentioned that use of resources, infrastructures, cost of services, speed of services, return of investment, transparency and participation. That is everywhere the beneficial is in the e-governance side. If I talk about the Haryana e-governance plan, what I understood from this, that Haryana e-governance is basically there's three things in e-governance prepared. The roadmap is in between the connectivity and the capacity building, and in the top of the pyramid there are common service center or CSC, and then e-district service delivery framework. Both these projects are basically citizen-centric. And on this platform of institution, when we are making to these services we are taking to the public, there are district information service, content development, state IT, nodal, back office, automation, SWAN, and data center. These are creating the pyramid, with the pyramid in the top, the CSC is sitting. CSC objective, everybody knows, I don't want to highlight what is CSC, but officially the objective of the CSC has been stated as follows, that access to information all remote in rural citizens, delivery of public services, then ICT of rural empowerment of socially disadvantaged people, access to cost efficient and quality services, and CSC is a change agent to promote rural entrepreneurship, enable community participation, effect collective action for social improvement. This is the objective of the CSC. This is also create a large opportunity for income opportunity for ex-army personnel or their families, because we know this army is dedicated to nations for their duty. Many of them lost their life because of this country, and their families suffering. So CSC has come up with a unique opportunity for also social services. If you see the social inclusion kind of things, this is the opportunity for ex-army personnel. They can be in CSC operators in village, they can be in SCS team, they can be in middle manager, project director, everything. So frontline team they are creating. There are three stakeholders in CSC, a three-tier implementation framework. All you are aware that one is state designated agency, SDA, like this is a nodal agency like Heartland. So there are similarly in every state there is a nodal agency who are basically the SDA. Then there is service center agency. They are the implementing agency providing the required investment budget and the functional specification of CSC. This would be equivalent to a franchisor. You can say it's a franchisor for the CSC, typically for one or more district or tehsils. Then village level entrepreneur. This would be the local level entrepreneur who would be in charge of running those kiosks or daily operation of the CSC. And you can say they are loosely equivalent to the franchisee. If you see the corporate model, so franchisor and franchisee. And they operate mainly to 5 to 6 villages. The services, what is proposed in the main frameline of CSC India, B2C and B2B services, business to consumer services, that is IT services, printing, scanning, DTP, agribusiness services, banking and financial, telecom services, PCO, postpaid, prepaid, connection, mobile phone sales, commercial services, retail sales and referrals, educational services, and here obviously telemedicine is a great part on that, e-commerce, online shopping. Then B2B or G2B citizens, market research, BPO services, advertising, promotion, matrimonial services, promotions. And the last one is G2C, government services. You see there are government projects is going on, you say about panchayat, in rural development, in any department, everything actually, people can exactly derive those services through the CSC media. Land records, birth date certificate, grievances, various kind of form downloads, bill payment, licenses, property tag, bus pass, railway ticket, passport, everything. There are different kind of media, different kind of agency to implementing those projects, and ultimately the CSC is the media which can directly, as a single phase or a single window solution for the public, common public. There are various selected SCS. I am just mentioning about Haryana. There are 4 actually, who have around 1159 numbers CSC. Let's go. Okay. No, this is Haryana. Correct me if I am wrong. This is the current situation. Nothing in Haryana. Because the logic I have mentioned that why there is some problem is going on. Right. So it was as per the CSC portal. So any kind of e-governance, there are challenges in implementation. One is obviously technology issue. because in technology there are infrastructure, application and integration. Management of change-led issue, important to investigate how the business of government and nature of government itself. Government changes, policy changes, then there are different kind of things which is affecting any kind of project. Funding issue obviously, red tape mechanism and lack of physical infrastructure and bandwidth. In India, everything, if you run in the mobility applications, everything, the bandwidth is still a problem. It is 1.5% SMB segment is using in the internet bandwidth if you see in the broadband. In India's connectivity is the 145th rank in the internet broadband connectivity still date. Coming to Fuel Rico India, we are basically into imaging, IT service and communication company. It's established in 1936. It's a part of $23 billion US dollar company. Rico India is one part of this, and our net worth is USD $9 billion. There are three founding principles. We work in Rico, that is love your neighbor, love your country, and love your work. Some of our product and services, IT services, management service, documents outsourcing, MFD, laser printer, digital camera and cloud services. Some of the brand we are operating in India, Rico, Linear, Guest.net is a very familiar brand. You know that it is #1 in digital duplicator. We also have Pentax camera launched in India recently. Pentax is the actual 99.9% cameras worldwide you see use the Pentax lens. And we have Rico Docs, which is our document management and workflow solution. We have done a lot of evaluation by society. We are a global 100 company. We are world most ethical company, and we have received 10 years in a row. Coming to Rico India, we are present in across direct sales across 22 locations in India and covered by across more than 2,000 dealers. So we have a service center in Kargil too. Even Port Blair, we have a service center. So we are representing everywhere, including Chandigarh. Our product portfolio, imaging, as you know, we are #1 in imaging. There is a multifunction device or large printing format, white printing, production printing. Then the division IT services. In IT services, we have operating a lot of everything from hardware to software and many government G2C projects. We have 2 data centers. One is in Calcutta, one is in Delhi. Both are tied to company and data center, which are offering our cloud solution, and then we have communication device, tablet, video conferencing, all those. I have already covered what we are imaging communication. Some of the IT infrastructure portfolio, we have data center, networking security, virtualization, backup, disaster recovery, infrastructure management, and cloud services. These are various cloud services we are offering. Rico Docs, it's a new product developed in India. Now we are bringing to other nations. In fact, it's available in everything, or it can run to independent of any of your. It's Microsoft or open source. Anything it run on your ERP, and it's available. You can retrieve your data, you can digitize, you can make the archiving, and then you can manage the document and creating the workflow solution, which is our document management, CRM, ERP, everything. You can make a lot of customization. There's a stall, you can get in a lot of defense on this. And we call our approach a 360-degree approach because we think one-stop solution provider for business process, business application, and IT infrastructures, which are covering all those 3 areas. Some our key alliances, we have part of 34 alliances, all the measures of you can see in data center, endpoint, backup, infrastructure, all the leading brands. We are more into highest level of partnership. Some of our customers, everywhere it's main into government. We are Rico India's present 70% business we are doing from the government and PSU segments. A few experiences, we have done a lot of UID enrollment, more than 2 crores of UID enrollment we have done in various states. Government UP, we are doing the UP government e-governance recently. It's a huge project. Government of Assam, we have developed, supplied more than 30,000 of tablet, cloud-enabled tablet to the education segment. And Government of Chhattisgarh, we have done more than 2 lakh tablet, again cloud tablet is the biggest order in India for tablets. West Bengal government, we have done different kind of ration card projects, e-governance projects, and G2C services. Government of Bihar, we have a rate contract with their nodal Beltron. We have already supplied huge number of server storage, desktop, and e-library solutions. They are present in various PSU. we are present almost in all the BFSI in India, and a major bank, PFSU bank, is using our cloud services in Calcutta, and we have more than 50,000 corporate customers. So, so I mean to say that we are not directly business to CSC management, but we are open for any kind of solution provider as a part. We are open and we can discuss any kind of e-governance solution. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Muthu. Now can I will invite Mr. Naval Kushla, Group Manager, ISA Study Solution from IBM. Yeah.
I also want to thank VNet for the opportunity given to us, my co-panelists, and good afternoon to all of you. Good afternoon. Okay, I know it's post-lunch. I'm happy to be back in Chandigarh. I have good association of more than around 15 years working here, coming here in fact, working with various companies, various avtars. Glad to see many of the known faces with whom I interacted. The topic is interesting today. In fact, from IBM, I'm taking the opportunity to show you the flavor of what smart solutions we can offer and how the CSC can be the vehicle to deliver it. I think I like your slides with those delivering those smart solutions. So I think on similar lines, some of the solution I'm going to talk about from IBM. Okay. So I think first and foremost thing, I think in government, we're seeing across globe, the innovation is growing. And I like Agrawalji in the morning when he talked about Aam Aadmi. I think everything is driven toward citizen-centric. I think that's what also the theme of my session. Unless it's giving benefits to the citizen, I think most of the governments are looking for solutions which reaching out to the citizen more effectively, giving them handy to make use of the government services or the citizen services more effectively. That's the motto in majority of the government. I mean, India, different states, worldwide, everywhere people are looking for those innovations and services. So if you look around the circle, these are some of the common services, I think, where governments are trying to pass the benefit to the citizen. Either it's the agency and the government administration, back-end administration part, or if you see on the right-hand side, there are three big brackets, I would say, where you can say a state or a city or governments or the citizens, every components can be divided into. So one is like planning and management, okay, how your cities can be planned better, effective, just like your urban planning or your environment or your back-end government automation, to the infrastructure where we live, what we use, what we consume, transportation, energy, water, all of those are utilities or infrastructure. And beside that, I think human or the citizen part is equally important, how those benefits are consumed by those people. So if I look around this space, majority of governments are looking to improve upon these areas and extend these services. While it's a common service citizen, common service centers, CSCs, going here, or a kiosk, or any kind of a front office mode that can be extended to them for these services. So for IBM, I think many of these are clearly our focus areas. If you look at the departments like public safety, governance, transportation, energy, healthcare, water, these are the big projects where IBM is spending a lot of effort, innovation, research to give us smarter solutions. And some of the solutions are in fact listed out here, either in terms of city operations or the governance of the operation part of it, or the law enforcement, how the analysis can be done better, how the crime can be reduced effectively, management of buildings, gas emissions, all that stuff in planning and management. Similarly, infrastructure, we have done quite a large number of projects improving upon the state of transportation, water, utility, electricity, grid, all that stuff. Plus human part of it. I'll talk about some of them in almost around 10 to 15 minutes of time slot and open to any question if you have. Now, starting on the same pillar, one of the very common, I would say, mode of delivery of any project, I think, composed of multiple aspects. One, obviously, the core application, the back end, okay, where government delivers the end-to-end services, and the front, through CSC or any kiosk, the extension of those services to the system. So both these components are good, important, beneficial. So we have created a kind of a framework around those lines. Okay, this can be extended to many of your projects. Recently, e-district or your municipality or any kind of a civil services project, those can be delivered using that framework and extended via CSC. So if I very quickly talk about it, there is the front office part, there is the back office part. I'm not going to do technology part as of now, but just to explain, I mean, consider that there is no technology. Okay, consider there is no automation. Obviously, there are certain components that we need to think about. If somebody has to do the governance, somebody has to do the collaboration with certain people. Somebody needs to ensure your files are moving from one place to another. So that means there is the approval process, workflow and factoring. Somebody needs to do some kind of analysis before a decision is taken. Right? So these are the components that one consider before delivering something. I'm talking about the back office part of it. So today in government, it's been called as a case management approach or a case worker. So government citizen services or people who are delivering those services, they're classified as a case worker. So IBM has positioned itself into the same arena through a back office automation like a case worker approach. I'll touch more it in the next slide. Similarly, in the front office side, there are requirements where people expect, right, somebody like CSC is delivering the services. He should have some kind of a system where he captured my application. Maybe he should be able to work even if the connectivity is not there. Plus other security mechanics to hold my data securely, right? So these are some of the traits for any back office, I would say civil service framework, so to say. I'm just taking one screenshot just to highlight one service. Maybe it's a e-district screenshot where somebody in the front would have an electronic form where the data is captured and in fact it is submitted for the further processing, which goes to the back end, which is my back end department, which allows me to look at the application that is applied for, get all its details, plus the associated documents that are attached. In a very simplistic manner, I'm trying to explain to you. So IBM has lots and lots of product, but I'm not going there. I'm just trying to explain the framework. So the idea here is that if somebody at the back end would need to, here in this example, domicile maybe certificate need to be issued. So while the domicile certificate need to be issued, you need to look around the validity of the data. You need to see if my subordinate have checked all the documents. Maybe there are comments being passed by that. So all of that, if it is given in one single unified way to that officer, I think the governance becomes easier. The expedition of those cases can be handled much more with the agility, I would say. So similarly, I think we've been reading a lot of citizen charter kind of expectation, where a citizen is supposed to be given a service in a stipulated amount of time. So if I know that a certificate to be issued in 3 days or 4 days, where are the gaps, where are the delays? So in the same framework, am I getting that information? Am I seeing the delays? Am I knowing, for example, this dial picture as an illustration shows, there are 46 cases which are taken more than 5 days. Okay, and there is a list of that. So if I can get it while the system process those applications, I think much easier for people to manage things. So just one slider just to highlight what I'm talking about. We got technology and solution in that area called Case Manager, which is end-to-end solution, integrated solution, which can be deployed at the back end to deliver any kind of a service. Okay, you can generate these services in 3 to 4 days because everything is well integrated. But the idea is not to talk in cell technology, but give the perspective there. So that's one aspect where I think we can see a lot of activities going by, a lot of departments here. I see NIC, Hartron and various other teams here, they're doing it. And we're also working with many of the government departments and top enterprises to deliver it. So be it the postal department where we have seeded that, be it one of the visa application processing where we have helped them, be it say factories and boiler, in fact in Karnataka we work with them in assuring the clearance to the factories given at the back end through the case management tool, and similarly banks. So while these are the projects which we have done, similarly I think we feel in Haryana there are opportunities and projects. Some of them are already being developed, being done and already been run, like IGRS, e-municipality, citizen services. Secondly, automation is also another area. I think we've been getting a lot of requests. I think the record rooms, maintenance of that, from fire and all that, I think it's an area where a lot can be done to improve the back-end administration. So let's move a step ahead. While we take care of the agency administration part, there's an important aspect of social delivery transformation. I think this is very, very important. If I'm a citizen, if I go to the government and say, okay, I'm jobless, I need some help, there has to be some checks and balances. There has to be some processes through which first I should be able to knock the door where I can go and apply. Okay, in example, we are talking about universal access. Okay, I can go to a single window where I say, okay, I'm a jobless. Maybe I'm a student who needs a scholarship. So once I go there, fill up my data, the system automatically tells me what are the scholarships that you are qualified for. Or if you have lost a job, what are the benefits that you are entitled for. Right? So that's a kind of a, I would say, single window the citizen would go for. Now, once I know that I am qualified for 4 or 5 services, this need to be delivered. There is a social program engine in between that takes care of that part of it. Which is a kind of a, okay, you have family, you have kids, you have so much income, okay, you need this at this time. The entire delivery mechanics to be done by the social program. And then the outcome management. So in the same context, I said I'm jobless. So government said, okay, I mean, nobody wants to just pay you free lunch kind of thing. So we said, okay, you are a jobless, maybe for your competency, there are openings coming up, maybe the Java kind of a course, you should do it. So I will ensure that I will monitor your course to complete your training. Another example we can take of the outcome management is a lot of pregnant women, the medicines and the supplements are given. On the time bound, are they being delivered? So we are looking for some kind of a platform, which we are calling here an acquisition called IBM Curum, which has been used almost around 80 odd government worldwide are using this platform to deliver the social benefit delivery to the citizen. And there are projects like State Social Welfare Program, e-scholarship, rural development, health, women-child benefit. They can easily use this kind of a platform because it's a very structured and integrated platform. Now let's move on to the next topic, which is a city administration, or I would say operation center, or another term we can say cross-agency collaboration. That's an area I think it's picking up in almost every kind of a sphere. Not only in these smarter cities kind of concept, the hospitals, stadiums, transport, everywhere people are looking for solutions which help them to operationalize things better, which allow them to do the cross-agency collaboration better. So IBM offers a platform called IBM Intelligent Operations Center, which takes care of all of those aspects in a single unified way. Now, just the illustration of it, it's a, I would say, portal-based solution where you can have all the incidents in a city or a specific entity being reported there. I could see the geolocation, where is it happening, and I can see all the camera feeds if I want to integrate, all the sensors I can integrate. So it gives me a complete view of a city. Just to give an example, you can use it for traffic management, disaster, emergency response center, public transport, power, highway management. A lot of examples where they are using it. People are using it for monitoring multiple entities. Now, some use cases, for example, in this scenario we have built. Now, if I have a 24/7 integrated city operations center, it can pick up feeds from any of these entities. It could be your weather, I know some flash floods have come, or a fire situation, or a city emanating like sewage or health and water. All those incidents can be captured in a 24/7 operation center. What will I get out of it? Obviously, things like I can actually use it for getting the prediction. Okay, what are the extreme weather conditions which are coming up? I can go and find the KPIs, key performance indicator, whether my city's water is an issue, electricity is an issue, and it can apply to city, it can apply to any department, hospital, stadium, anywhere, where I know these are my key performance indicators which need to be green, and I can keep a watch on that. I can also have a situational awareness. I know, for example, there's a bomb blast in a certain area, which area it is. Maybe in that area, what are the hospitals which are got the burn yard where I can send the people, right? So the situational awareness of knowing what's happening and where it is happening is very important. Similarly, then I start the SOPs, standard operating procedure. So in case of, let's say, there's a truck going with the nitrogen gas, there's a blast there or some leak there. It's a special kind of a situation which needs a different kind of assessment and handling. So unless I know what are the SOPs to do that activity, I'm not going to proceed. So overall, put together, through the different feeds, through different input that it takes, I can do a very, very intelligent and informed decision using this operation center. One more example, I would say how CSP or the citizen can be involved. In fact, we are working with many of the smart township planners to build these cities and townships more effectively. And some of the common areas for a city day-to-day issues, so it could be like road repair, water wastage, maybe there's a pipe busted out somewhere, garbage pile up, payments block, anything which can happen, and a citizen like me who notices all those things happening, I can also have a mobile-based application through which I can take a picture of any of the situation with the geolocation code, and I can upload to the center which I am talking about, the 24/7 center. So this center will capture this input, which is an event. The event is reported. Somebody would validate it. Maybe if I have a camera sensor, I can go and pick it up, and I get insights of how is it happening. And then what are the standard operating procedure? So imagine a situation. Okay, if I'm a citizen, I see a very busy road. Maybe there's some water overflow happening, right? And assuming that today, like we have a rain, 24 hours down the line, we have a extreme weather predicted. Now, if I do not report that activity in time, plus the rainfall coming, it will definitely create water flow, overflow, and probably the transport would be effective, roads would be effective, maybe the water quality would be contaminated. So, with this, if I can report in time, system will immediately take in action, cross agencies are involved, and the action is taken timely rather than the problem gets really big and handled. And if you see that first responders are alerted, we can also give a first responder some kind of a mobile interface. Okay, maybe certain person will go and fix that. They said, okay, I have fixed it, and upload it, and then everything is okay. So a lot of, I would say, entities, campuses, they are looking for solutions like that, where an integrated command center can be helpful. One or two more slides, just to give an example. The Intelligent Operations Center can be used for various scenarios like transportation. Many states, many countries are using transportation, which is a key area. How the transport is flowing, what is the congestion level, what is the prediction that in 30 minutes this road will be congested. Obviously, they use a lot of sensors on the ground, and with the help of analytics, they determine that, okay, avoid that road because there is a possibility of congestion. Okay? All of that is possible because you have a integrated intelligent operation center running around. Okay, so then there are different reports, different analytics. I heard man talking about analytics. So all of that definitely useful. Similarly, water, intelligent water. Water is a huge scarcity, I think, across the states and countries. People are using it very precisely. And then, if I have a complete view of my water filters and pipes and everything, I can have a complete view. I can have a distribution of water accordingly if I see how the distribution is happening in these states. So a lot of benefits can be done. I can also integrate that to the assets. All the pipe that you have, if any repair work is required, I can attach it to the asset management, or a work order can be initiated, all of that stuff. So a very effective end-to-end system to make sure your cities or operations or state can be managed effectively. In fact, one of this example is the Bangalore Water case that we done with them, where the complete water distribution situation is visible and they can use with the help of Intelligent Operations Center. Okay, many organizations worldwide are using the benefit of Intelligent Operations Center kind of thing. Sunlight Stadium, China Transportation, Davao City, a lot of people are using these benefits. Similarly, Haryana, I think we can find out many use cases, examples where we can apply that. And this is my last slide as a summary. Back to the same citizen-centric solution. I think CSCs can surely be the vehicle to deliver whatever we just talked about as a very summarized way. I mean, it could be citizen services delivery, social benefit, or ACD amenities, reporting and maintenance, where we can make use of that. Plus, government can definitely use these automation system to improve upon. So at the end, the citizen benefits are delivered with the agility and the experience. With this, I think I should take a pause here, sir. In case I have any questions, I'm happy to take.
Thank you very much, Mr. Khosla. We have now about 10 to 12 minutes. We welcome, rather than being one side story, we welcome some of the questions, some critical questions in regard to the CSC or the way the CSC has been designed, developed, or being evolved. If there are any questions, we will be willing to take on that. Or among the panel, your presentations being given from IBM and from RICO. If you have specific questions to them, then that comes in. Anybody? Somebody in the back. In fact, the entire model sees that 30% is what government services and 70% are non-government services. So what you are saying is you are actually enabling, creating a framework in which he is able to derive not only government but also other than the government. Information, knowledge and skill. See, he will get information, he can whatever he wants to do. With that he will increase his knowledge and with that he will improve his skills, which will create employment opportunity that the issues on his income generation. So therefore, this issue of, it was debated quite a lot, saying that we have seen the back-end part of government. The back-end part of the government for service delivery takes 60 years, it may take still longer. But you don't allow the opportunity being denied to the citizens in rural India, and that is how this common service centers and 1 lakh across the country were done. There were questions being saying you should do in phase, why you are doing in one go. Karnataka was the classic example when they set up at Hooghly level. Hooghly is a block in Karnataka. So they set up 800 centers block level and didn't go beyond block level, saying that we will learn, experiment and do it. But the learning curve actually impinges on the citizens' right to access. You are denying the benefit to rural citizens in Karnataka by not allowing the common service center to set up in villages. And that is what will happen. So this saying if there is no learning curve, as you go, you will evolve. And there is no magic band that one day, all the government services are available. Government service delivery is a process of evolution. It is not a process of revolution. And therefore it evolves over a period of time as we go along. The second question which everybody asks on the CSC is saying, do you need intermediaries? We have SCAs, we call them intermediaries. This question has also been coming as we go along. Initially, of course, people didn't realize it, but later on as the process started, and now also many state governments are asking, do we need an intermediary called SCA? See, there are, of course, the scheme does not say only, the scheme gave an option to the state. And that is why all the other models, it was left to the choice of the state. They can either select a private entity in order to set up these and franchisee, or in any format, not necessarily franchisee. In fact, the Haryana model, which initially started, was basically started an employee-employee relationship model. But it didn't work out. It didn't work out in that fashion. The reasons are many. So the scheme as such in design allow the flexibility to state to take a call from the state whether they want to do the intermediary selection through a private enterprise or they can do through own government initiative. But I think largely the danger which I can perceive from the government side is If you do not have a private intermediary dealing with such a large number of people in rural India, especially in this northern belt, like I've gone and seen Bihar, Bengal, people are now combined together and form group of organizations of VLEs, and they are now saying, now since we are delivering government services, make us government employees. So the danger continues. Directly dealing with the VLE who delivers service in any format, as the danger of combining, these guys combining together and asking, saying that, make me government employee. It has happened with the Anganwadi workers who were contract employees and they all went to Supreme Court and they all made regular employees. And that is a niche. Plus there are a lot of other hand-holding support which is required, which is difficult for a government organization, whether it is district government society or any format, to deliver that hand-holding. Because CSCs will need a lot of hand-holding. Because service deliveries are unique. For every service delivery, you need hand-holding and support. Plus there are problems of various nature which emanate from various agencies and coordination of connectivity and application, plus settlement of the claims, etc. You need somebody to intermediate. And largely the government, I think Maharashtra is one which is saying, it believes that you need an intermediary because it's impossible to deal. I was out in Bihar by all the VLEs who actually combined together saying that you throw out this SCA and you will not leave this room unless you sort out a problem with the SCA. We are not saying all the private parties who are into the system are clean. All the private parties are doing a decent job. Like the VLE, I told you, there are various colors of VLE who are doing business. There are private parties of various natures of this, who are some are short-term, nature type, some have got to do this because they thought this is a government project, they got into the system. Some realize this is a part of the potential for business. Some are already into the business, of the same nature of rural India. And there have been great success stories for them. I can give examples of few of them. I say basic, classic example was front-end rural India, and they started this movement, this initial movement of IT literacy in rural India. We started with organizations of that region, and they do now also exceeding well. So this is one question they say to the intermediary. They also keep on saying that the intermediary exploit the VLE. This question keeps on coming back, so the intermediary exploit the VLE. Of course, some of them are very transparent. See, for every service delivery, they will make it very transparently available. The VLE share is 70%, I will take 25% and balance will go to so and so. So they make very transparent. Some are still not transparent, so what happens, the relationship is not very conducive in that sense. But we have been emphasizing with all the SCAs to do whatever they want to do. Because the relationship between the VLE and SCA side, for them to decide, but they must be very transparent. So there is no exploitation of a VLE in that sense because the government is involved in the process. I think largely they bring out brochures, they put on their websites that if you want to do a UID enrollment system, if you buy kit from me, this is the rate. If you buy kit of your own, this is the rate. Or if you want the kit only, this is the rate. So it may be very transparent. That is how the relationship evolves. But a franchising relationship evolves over a period of time. And a franchising relationship to a government process is taking its own turn and own time. Because it has never happened in the history of India to have a franchising process supported by government. This is unique. So this is going to take, it has turbulences, ups and downs, but it is a good and bad stories of all. Of course, they say, what is the timeline? Because the whole scheme was thrown out to G2C delivery. Where is the G2C delivery going to take place? That we keep on saying to them. See, G2C is not G2C, because of the G2C delay, that is how the scheme was being compensated by government. And government got into the system of providing the support, largely saying that G2C will take time, and till the time what you are not able to generate on view of G2C, you generate on terms of B2C. Today, fortunately, there are a large number of services. Today, despite all the ups and downs of people saying this, that and that, let me tell you, the attrition rate in the VLE is almost negligible. Not a single VLE leaves the ecosystem. Because the SCA, whenever we tell the SCA that if the guy is not comfortable, why not ask me? Even many SCA told them, you take your money back and go out if you are not comfortable in dealing with system, but they don't go out. Not a single guy is left. I will share you some good stories of what happened. I met this guy in Madhya Pradesh. He's a BE, started a CAC. He said 4 years before I started the cycle. In 3 years, he bought the building in which he started operating. Today, his turnover is 1 crore. And that is the story of a VLE. We have one chap in Kerala who told me in his own terms his turnover is 70 lakh rupees in a year. That is a VLE. I met this guy, there is an MTech IIT from Mumbai who is a VLE in Parvada in Visakhapatnam. He runs a VLE. His wife is also a BE. So So the really is all great stories of people. I can enumerate. About 80% of people are actually graduates and above. There are some people who are below. A village level entrepreneur. When you see, when we organize workshop, now we organize workshop almost everywhere. We have done district-wise, we are now doing all districts across the country. And we see the excitement. The age group of VLE is actually it's up to 35. So between 20 to 35 is the age group of people in rural India who will now become enterprise. For us, the dream is actually to create an enterprise and entrepreneurship. But entrepreneurship and enterprise does not come overnight. It has its own. I told you 4 types of people who join VLE. The enterprise is sometimes genetic. If you belong to a community, then you become an entrepreneur. Evolving the process of enterprise and entrepreneurship takes a longer period. And the selection process of the VLE is a key to Haryana system. I don't know how many of you know Haryana was the first state in the country to have rolled out CSCs. The first state in the country. Some of the best centers were in Haryana. We have actually taken people from Delhi and shown them in Dhonsi, Haryana, 3i Protect Centers. Unfortunately, 3i, the change in guard in 3i changed the system, 3i went off and government went off. But this happens in project. There's nothing unusual, it happens in projects. And I am very happy with the leadership today. They brought out a book. I think one of the first state who brought out a real good book on CSC. It is a good visionary document. But I wish we can emphasize and take commitment from all departments to deliver that number of services. And the CSC can be really a game changer. For all of us who are associated, CSC is a phenomenal game changer. As I told you, we do 3 services. I just shared 3 more services which are unique for CSC, which recently comes. See, Government of India, when they wanted, initially it was difficult for us to sell that. Now they realize, we went to Finance Ministry. In the banking, there are about 1 lakh banking correspondents which exist today. Government of India trying very experiment, handheld device, Fino guy came. A lot of people brought handheld device and saying a door-to-door banking. Out of 1 lakh, only 40% survived, rest of them all disappeared. Why? Because they realized that the banking alone, as a standalone business, is not a viable proposition. So what they thought, that is the reason they called us and saying that maybe common service center is a better alternative to do banking within the country. And we signed with 26 public sector banks. Today, we have a framework where all the public sector banks can appoint common service centers as BC. Today, about 6,500 centers work as BC. In Madhya Pradesh, there are 1,000 of them work as state bank. The commission every month they earn is about 75 lakhs. The last year commission for 700 BC in J&K, which was done by J&K Bank, was 5 crore. That is the amount of money the BC can generate. It's a phenomenon, and we are all adamant and we are all fighting with all the banks in order to create all 1 lakh. See, what a change of this country will take place if we have 1 lakh centers in rural India working as business correspondent. That is one part of the story. The second is the insurance. Insurance regulated, see, I don't know how many of you know that the insurance penetration in this country is only 3.5%. Pathetic. See, in rural India is only 1.5%. What are we going to do? That means they realize that the agent model is not a workable model. So what they thought, IRDA brought out new guidelines saying that common service centers will be used for the purpose of penetration of insurance services in rural India. And they defined, the first time in the country, they said the common service agent will not, the common service entrepreneur will not be an agent, he will be a broker. That means what? That means he will be able to sell product and services to all 51 companies in the country. And IRDA is actually in the path breaking because IRDA says there will be no paper. It's a paperless insurance product and service being delivered to CSC. They ask each company to work out a product and submit to you and saying that everything will work on UID. They have told us saying no nonsense, it will be all UID compliant. So every data will come from UID, the application, and the commission will also be defined, and therefore this will be done. So you have now insurance which will cater to the need of people in rural India, both for health and for life and for non-life, animals and farms. See, what are going to be game changer? The third we have banking, insurance and the pension. Fortunately, Government of India pension for government servant and unorganized sector is today same. See, what a government servant gets as pension, actually the unorganized sector will get also the same pension, destination pension scheme. And we are now saying all across the country we can do pensions. So we actually try to work out an award scheme where a villager, a VLE can actually complete all the people living in that vicinity, in that area, cover them banking, insurance and pension. That is what is the model for us to do it. So we have, of course, we also tied up with the Western Union in order to do remittances for people who do abroad. So we have a full cycle of financial inclusion, real financial inclusion framework existing for Common Service Center. The second is we have for UID. See, we are the first one who were asked for UID because this UID initial part of the story is over. But what will happen to people who want to make changes? So the UID called us and said that, see, we want to have permanent UID centers, permanent Aadhaar centers. And they realized the only way to set up permanent Aadhaar centers is a common service center. Because common service centers and permanent enrollment centers make a great sense. So we signed an agreement. So what we do, today we have a common service centers who can do enrollment, he can do updation, he can do printing, he can do authentication, and he can do seeding of databases. That means the full cycle of services of UID today is available for the common service center. That is the possibility of what you can do today. The third is our emphasis has been also in education, because we do realize all the good story of common service center, education has been a key killer string. Because education, people are willing to pay, and people are willing to pay for good quality education. So what we have done is, see, I gave an example initially when I mentioned 40% people drop out their school scale. We have signed a nationwide to open schooling. So we have, what is saying, anybody in a village who want to actually get into the schooling system, who has dropped out of the school, he can fill up his form, he can pay his fee, he can get his admit card, he can also get his examination center name and the date, and he can aggregate the result on the same center. We signed an agreement with NOIS to do facilitation work. NOIS is also willing to upgrade them if they are good enough to study center. So they'll be able to then do study center for NOIS in addition to facilitation. We have the second one on NALET for IT part. IT today, of course, the Government of India program for 1% in every family to be the illiterate. It will take minimum 4 years for us to cover the entire population. The budget is 25,000 crore. It's going to be a huge mandate to do it. And 4 years, the CSC actually doesn't really worry about anything other than only do this. Because our calculations show they can generate so much of income that they can sustain himself by doing illiteracy. Illiteracy will have two advantages. One is, of course, it will generate income for him. And second is, the same guy has to come back to learn. We've done experiments in Punjab. We've done about 40,000 people now trained. We are likely to get an order from government to do 8 lakh across the country to the Common Service Center. Common Service Center can be a real game changer for doing education. We have been also, the VLEs have been asking to do full cycle of education services. Means somebody who has done O level of NALET or B level or A level of NALET should be able to do certificate course and diploma course in electronics. So we tied up with some university where even that can be done. So we have full cycle of an education working available, full cycle of UID available, full cycle of finance inclusion service available. Today, this is all available to the Common Service Center, the framework exists. It is the entrepreneur's ability and our ability to excite him in order to deliver these services and generate a business. I thank all of you for listening and thank you all the panelists for sharing your thought process. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir, for so much of in-depth knowledge of different aspects of IT and governance. I would now request Shri Dinesh Tyagi to present the token of appreciation to the key speakers of this session. Can we have the mementos and thoughts? Can we have a huge round of applause? I would now request Shri Ravi Gupta ji, CEO Alice Technomedia, to felicitate Shri Dinesh Tyagi ji. I hope you enjoyed this session. The next session is equally good. This